Assalamualaikum everyone. So this is Huma Hassan once again with all of you to do the critical analysis of the poem. If you remember last time we discussed some of the basic steps that we should follow to do the critical analysis. If you want, you can get the link of those steps in the description box. If you haven't gone through that video, just go through it. It's a very short video. Then you'll be better able to understand this critical analysis of the poem that we are going to do together. So, the poem that I have chosen today is The Negro Speaks of Rivers. This is by Langston Hughes. Now we are going to begin with the first discussion on the title of the poem, that is The Negro Speaks of Rivers. So here this term Negro has been used specifically, and I would highlight it if I'm doing the critical analysis, thinking that the poet is conscious for his race because he has specifically mentioned race there. So, racial discrimination or racial element can be found in his poetry. Okay, now we go on, and according to our first step, let's read the whole poem. Let's read it once together. I have known rivers. I have known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I have seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I have known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. All right, it is very beautiful and a strong poem. When we see it, but just by looking at the poem for the first time, obviously few things have stayed in our mind, and that is that the poem is talking about different rivers. Now let's go to it stanza by stanza. I'm reading first stanza again. I have known rivers. I have known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. What does that mean? That means that this Negro, the speaker of the poem, he is talking about the rivers, showing off his knowledge, bragging about his knowledge, and telling us that his knowledge is as old as the world has existed. And he is referring that he has known rivers that have been there even before the human blood that was created. It also gives us a very strong imagery here. The rivers as flowing on the world map or in the world as the rivers are being shown to be flowing. Similarly, human blood flows in the human veins just like that. So, a sort of metaphor is there for the rivers of the world and blood in human veins. When my soul has grown deep like the rivers, so he's referring, comparing his soul to the rivers, and we have simile here. I told you that we are supposed to highlight the literary devices. So when we can see that like has been used here. So this is a simile that he is comparing his soul to the river. I bathed in Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. So I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young, and here in this stanza he's referring to four rivers simultaneously: Euphrates, Congo, Nile, Mississippi. Mm, and he has given different references about it, that he has taken bath in Euphrates, he has been near the Congo too, and he built his hut there. He looked upon the Nile, and since it's near Egypt, so raised pyramids above it. It is as if the soul of every human being he is referring to that has been moving around. Then he says that he has heard the singing of the Mississippi, maybe the singing of the song of freedom, when Abe Lincoln went down there and Abe Lincoln went for the freedom of the blacks. I have known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. Okay, so that is the poem. Now we have highlighted few basic points. Now let's see. This is just for the introduction for students who don't know about these rivers. You can see here this is Mississippi. Here you can see this red one is Congo. The purple one is Nile, and this green one is Euphrates, right? So you can see that this poet is the speaker is well-traveled person. He has almost covered the whole world, starting from North America to Africa, the end of Africa. So he has talked about all these rivers here. Now, a little about poet. Do you know the poet? Langston Hughes is a huge name in the field of poetry. So, just by looking at his picture, obviously, I don't mean to be discriminatory, but we get to know that he is from the Negro race. This is a brief introduction about Hughes. It is said about him that he portrays the joys and hardships of working class black lives, avoiding both sentimental idealization and negative stereotypes. The thing is that when a poet is writing, we do feel that there is certain responsibility on him to defend his race, which makes him idealize his race sentimentally, emotionally. He gets involved there, and then to present the negative stereotypes that are attached. Negative stereotypes are the typical negative thinking attached to the Africans. If we may think about it, I mean, it is very common that it is considered that Africans live in jungle, and when we talk about them, people may think that they are usually presented in the cartoons, in the movies, as if living in jungles and they're wild people. So here is challenging that negative stereotype, and he is referring to the fact that Negros speaks of rivers, and Negro knows a lot about the world. They have the knowledge of the world. Now, talking about Hughes, when his first book was published, he had already been a truck farmer, cook, waiter, college graduate, sailor, doorman at a nightclub in Paris, and he had visited Mexico, West Africa, Azores, Canary Islands, Holland, France, and Italy. So this short biography tells us about his exposure of the world, that how much he was aware of the world, of the rivers, of the life of a middle class person, working class person. All right. Now, if we do quick analysis of the poem, it we know, okay, it was first published in 1921, and we can say that the poem presents the voice and memory of the Africans who were forced into slavery, including the time when Abraham Lincoln fought to abolish it. And the poem provides glimpses of his heritage, memories attached with ancient rivers in Africa. Here we say that the poet tries to establish a link between the past and the present. He uses rivers as symbols to reflect the African experience in history. He says that his soul is as deep as a river, implying he has seen and experienced tremendous changes in his civilization. This is usually the theme of post colonial poets, post colonial writers. They talk about it because Western men had taken this responsibility of civilizing the East, civilizing the Asians as well as Eastern. So the post-colonial writers do talk about it, that we also had knowledge, we were civilized, and we had an experience of different things. Being different does not mean that we were meant to be ruled. So we can see an element of pride in this poem, heritage, and nature. So these are the major themes of this poem. Then the poet talks about the origin and historical existence of the African race. African race is deeply attached to the knowledge that is as old as the ancient rivers. And the mood of the poem suggests that the speaker takes pride in his color, ancient culture, and race. So I'm just skipping through it, means reading it very fast because I have already explained it while doing the analysis. Now, as I promised that I shall be talking about the literary devices side by side, so we shall be talking about the devices that I have highlighted here. These are just few examples. You can find more. There is personification. Personification is when we give quality of a living thing to a non-living thing. As it has been called here, I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. So singing a lullaby is human quality that has been given to Congo river, and then seeing its muddy bosom. So that is also personification because bosom is a characteristic, a physical characteristic of human beings. Then river ancient as the world. There is a simile. I also mentioned two a simile while reading the poem. Then the flow of human blood in human veins. There we have imagery. We talked about it, that it creates a strong imagery of the rivers flowing on the world map, just like the veins of a human, as veins are flowing in the human body. The blood is flowing in the human veins. Then he says that I heard the singing of Mississippi. Here again, you can see the personification, but here I have highlighted this statement for enjambment. Enjambment is a run on line where you do not have any full stop in between, and the line continues to the next part and then the next one. So that is run on line, and we have enjambment there. Again, since there is a reference to Abe Lincoln, so we can say we have allusion there as a literary device. Allusion is when we refer to some historical incident or some book or some any historical reference or book has been referred to, that is allusion. So here he is referring to Abe Lincoln's fight that he initiated to emancipate the slaves in America. So that is allusion, that historical reference. And while we were doing this analysis in class, some of my students suggested, and I am open to their suggestions, that we can say that the different stages of life have been discussed and there is symbolism for that. For instance, different rivers there where poet, the speaker was lulled to sleep, where he built pyramids. They refer to different stages of life. When we struggle in life, we build pyramids, and when we are tired, we go to sleep. So that is up to you if you want to